Welcome back, podcast fans. Welcome back to Stories from the River. This is your host, Charlie Malouf. I'm here for a solo episode in between our two series. We just had our Knights of the Ledger Summit series, and we're about to start a brand new series after Easter. So today, you just get me for a solo episode, but I'm going to bring the topic. Pretty exciting, so perk up, sit up, buckle in. We're going to talk about tariffs.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
Okay, tariffs. So this was a strange topic that just kind of hit us pretty hard in the home furnishings industry, kind of, I wouldn't say out of the blue. I mean, we get a lot of our product, well, obviously as an Ashley licensee, even in the home furnishings industry, I think a lot of the home furnishings product has shifted away from China. So if you were thinking about tariffs from China, I think prior to the Liberation Day and the Rose Garden ceremony, you probably were expecting, an impact from tariffs. And, to some degree, we were thinking, there might be an impact, but we really didn't know what to expect. And it was really not on my radar to the extent that it was. And then we had Liberation Day and the Rose Garden ceremony. Everyone remembers it. I'm recording this on tax day in America, April 15th. And we've just come off let me set the stage a little bit. We just came off a wonderful Masters weekend. Rory McIlroy won his first ever Masters in his career Grand Slam. And this came 14 years after his collapse in 2011 at the Masters, and 11 years since his last Grand Slam. So this was a guy who was in his early 20s who was off to the races and had a little bit of a lull in terms of these Grand Slam championships. So I thought it was a very dramatic win, a playoff win where he had it, but I think he bogeyed the last hole on 18, and he had started the day on day 4 with a double bogey. And why is this important to us? I mean, it's the Masters, but we have a store in Augusta, so that's one of our home markets, in Augusta, Georgia. And then he faltered at the very end, got into a playoff, but then he came back and had a great putt shot or a great second shot, and I think birdied to make it, to win it over a playoff over Justin Rose. So you can debate, was this the greatest Masters ever? Or there were a couple from Tiger Woods, I think his first one, or his comeback in 2019, or when Jack Nicklaus won in 86, I think when he was 46 years old. We were having a debate in an executive strategy meeting yesterday about whether or not this was the greatest Masters of all time. So I'm sure I'll get some great comments on that. Okay, so also we've got, we've talked on this podcast before about the rhythm of retail, and the beautiful thing about retail in the rhythms are, hey, on Easter Sunday we get to take a break, so we're going to have a day off, and so whatever your faith orientation is, whether you celebrate Easter Sunday or Resurrection Sunday or Passover or what have you, at the very least you get a day off and you get some time to rest. We get rare days off at retail. It's not for everyone. So I hope, wish all of you a wonderful holiday and restful season or Resurrection Sunday day and Easter Sunday, and so however you celebrate. Okay, so that's where we are right now. And so where are we in the world? I mentioned tax day, so that can add a little bit of stress for many Americans. But I tell you what else can add some stress is some tariffs. And so 13 days ago, on Liberation Day, as it was called, there was this phrase called reciprocal tariffs that came about and said the U.S. was going to tariff everybody in the world, every other country, by half of what they tariff us, as it was explained to us. Now, okay, that sounds like fair. And I'm not trying to get political here, but I was like, gosh, the shock and awe of the fact that the tariffs from Vietnam were going to be 46%, that was very shocking. So Ashley has a large manufacturing presence in Vietnam, and we get a lot of our product from Ashley. And they also have a lot of domestic manufacturing. They are a blended global manufacturer, and they, I'm sure, source from other countries, maybe Central Latin America, India, and probably a tiny bit from China now. But it's interesting. I read a book many, many years ago, like 15 years or so ago, maybe slightly more, called The Furniture Wars. And the subtitle was How America Lost a Multi-Billion-Dollar Industry. North Carolina used to be a hotbed of manufacturing, and he referred to it as the Briar Patch. And he told the story of all these different manufacturers over the years and decades in America. And a lot of that business shifted overseas, probably first to China and then to like Vietnam, Malaysia, India, etc. Out to the Far East. They set up great plans. They learned how to do it, and they did it really well. And Ashley got out in front of that and became just a large manufacturer in southern Vietnam and then in central Vietnam. And so to see a 46% tariff come across the newswire, I got to tell you, that was shocking. That was as jolting, jarring, and shocking as probably since the COVID announcement, when the world got shut down 5 years ago. That was very jarring. And to just say, hey, overnight we're going to have a 46% tariff. And I was like, why does Vietnam charge the United States 92% tariffs? That made no sense to me. I couldn't figure it out until I kept seeing articles and news articles that said, well, it's not really what Vietnam charges us. It's the trade deficit. So what it really was the trade deficit was put as the number that we were going to charge the tariff as. The trade deficit is actually not a tariff. Vietnam manufactures a lot for us, but they don't buy a lot. They're not buying a lot of Teslas and iPhones or stuff that we sell and ship over there. It's just a different kind of economy and way of life. And a lot of the manufacturing jobs, America's gone more towards a knowledge-based economy and a service economy, and not as much of a manufacturing economy. And then the manufacturing that we do is really kind of more the complex manufacturing and the higher end manufacturing, if you will. So a lot of those jobs went over there because Americans, they were more cost effective and efficient to manufacture, and they made it very well. And so they drove the price down for American consumers. That's just what happened. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's great one way or the other. That's what happened. And what really, the reason it was kind of shocking to me is that I was just trying to contemplate, well, what happens to demand if tariffs go up, to 46% on our product? Like, we're going to have to charge more, and maybe our product should cost more. Maybe we've deflated the prices so much for decades, but to do that overnight seemed like pretty jarring, and might be pretty jarring to demand. And just the prospect of tariffs infiltrating across our economy from every country, it seems like everything's going to get more expensive. And our product tends to be more of a discretionary purchase, and especially it's connected a little bit adjacent to like housing starts and access to credit and financing. And so if housing starts are still slow and credit tightens, people are not going to defer their groceries or their milk and eggs. They might not like it if those prices go up by 50% or double, but they'll still have to buy the food and essential items, but they potentially could put off their home furnishings. They could wait a little bit till it got maybe more reasonable or things changed. So it really put the economy into turmoil, and the markets kind of vomited a little bit and got really volatile and jittery. And then everything kind of got back down to a deferral of for 90 days, and then it was, hey, we think it's going to have a baseline tariff of 10% for every country. Well, that's a lot more manageable than a 46% tariff. So right now where we are is there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know if it's going to be 0% tariffs, some exceptions for our product, or 46% tariff, or 10%, or somewhere in between. Okay. So we don't know. We don't know where it's going to land. So what can we do? Well, we still have to run our business. We still have to we get a scorecard every day. We still have an annual budget. We still have expenses we have to pay. We still have obligations and liabilities. So it really is times like these that really force us to hone in our focus and to focus on what we can control. And I think that's really the main message. Like, there's going to be unpredictable things that happen in the economy and the market, and this won't be the last time. And you constantly want to try to put yourself in a position to be able to be resilient, to be adaptable. When we find out what the ultimate tariffs are going to be. And we'll find out about that when there are price increases that we are alerted to. When we receive the price increases and we understand fortunately, we're partnered with Ashley and we can understand how they're going to adapt and respond to it. If they're going to absorb any of it from a manufacturing base, they've got a lot of clout, a lot of domestic opportunities. And so maybe if a kit comes over, sees a cut and sew kit, but it's completed in the United States, it's not a completely 10% tariff on like those product lines, for instance. So I think we're going to be, if it's just at 10%, Ashley and Broad River Retail will be able to manage through that pretty well without being too disruptive to our pricing to our customers. But either way, we've got to focus on what we can control. So what can we control? We can control how we show up every single day to our guests. We can make sure that we're hitting on our way of doing business, giving a great guest presentation, going through our C4 sales process, which we've talked about, going through our product training, going through our comfort tests, our pillars, our CXM, our CRM processes, and really making sure that we deliver a wonderful experience to our guests in store and at delivery and everything in between. When we're confirming their delivery date, for instance, or following up with them, inviting them to an event, what have you. So those are things that we can control. From a kind of a corporate standpoint, we got to be mindful of our expenses. We got to be adaptable to see, hey, our sales trending up, trending down, and do we need to be mindful of potential ways to cut back on expenses if we think that they're going to trend down over a long period of time. Currently, fortunately, we're not seeing that. We're still seeing really healthy demand and robust sales and across our stores and our markets and steady traffic. And so that's a blessing. We consider that a tremendous blessing. But really, our people are focused. They're locked in. Our recruiting efforts are active and ongoing. And all the things that we're focused on for this year, to drive revenues, for operational efficiencies, for innovation, for the ways that we're trying to be pioneering, for boosting up and bolstering our security, for working on Project Cascade out in the inland Northwest, for looking for new avenues to grow. All of those things are still in play. We're working on all of those things because ultimately we're always trying to take a really long-term view. We're always focused on, hey, what's it going to look like 5, 10, 15 years from now? What's our vision, our goals, our plans, our strategies, our tactics to achieve those mile markers? And then we still got to wake up and march every single day. We get a scorecard every single day. We have budgets. We have annual budgets, quarterly forecasts. And we've talked about those things like budgeting and forecasting here on this podcast. So I really think there's this, like, the circle of influence, and you have to think about what can you control and what can you not control. As it pertains to the outputs of Liberation Day and tariffs, there's going to be some disruption. There might be some pain. So you probably need to be a little bit more mindful of expenses. I'm hearing from a lot of companies that are pausing or stalling projects or initiatives or new plans for growth or hiring. And that's unfortunate, like for certain, for the economy or for folks coming out of school, college or business school, what have you, looking for jobs right now, because it might be a little bit of a pause, because uncertainty does kind of lead people to say, well, hang on, I don't want to go approve that multi-million-dollar capital expense right now. I want to see how this thing plays out. And that's probably the worst part about the uncertainty, is just how pressing pause isn't really the way we need to kind of run our lives or our business. But I understand you do need to be mindful to say, well, what's it going to look like in the next short term? Because we've got to also, not to get to the long term, you have to survive in the short term. So that's just being mindful of some of those variable expenses that kind of can crop up. So we'll navigate through the tariffs as best as we can. I feel like we'll do it like we approach every other kind of hurdle that comes our way, but we're not going to detract from our long-term strategy or plans to where we want to be by 2030, where we want to be by the end of this year, and what those goals are, and what those tactics and strategies are going to require for us to go achieve those. And if you go to sleep every night and you say, hey, I did all I could do with what I could control, you should be able to rest and feel like, hey, that was a good day's work, a good, honest day's work and output. And I would just encourage you, try not to get too stressed out about it. There's going to be a lot of noise about it. But at the end of the day, if you're in the field of battle, you know that there's like Coach Stacy says, the number one buying decision for us in retail that a customer makes is when they pull into your parking lot, and they probably didn't land there by accident. They probably had some sort of destination, put it into their GPS or some intention to say, hey, I'm interested in new furniture today, and what a blessing is that, and let's give that guest the best guest experience that we can when they're in our stores. And sometimes we just need those reminders that every guest, every customer is precious and vital and critical and important, and let's give them the best that we can and not take our customers or our guests for granted. So that's it. Again, want to wish you all a happy Easter or whatever your faith calls for you to celebrate. It's a very important day for my faith, and so in retail you get the day off for most of you. If you don't, hopefully you can find some time to celebrate and just to rest and reflect on what the day and what the season means for you. We're going into the spring season now and getting ramped up for the second quarter. And it's not too late to kind of go after and set some goals, or remind yourself of what your goals were from the beginning of the year. And this year is still within our grasp. Nothing's changed from that landscape. Nothing about Liberation Day or tariffs has changed our outlook in terms of going after our goals, and we're not trying to make excuses. And so let's put our goals out there. Let's go be bold and go after it, and let's go be pioneering and say, hey, the goal is the goal, the standard is the standard, and we're going to get after it. So thanks so much for joining us every Tuesday and Thursday here at Stories from the River. We try to bring you the best, freshest new content that we can for what's happening behind the scenes here at the River. And so this is a quick solo episode. I think you're going to love this very next series from Sam Bloom on retail experience and how we in retail operations and the journey we've gone from guest services to retail operations. And so she'll bring you a brand new 4-part series, and we've got some exciting new series queued up after that. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time here at Stories from the River.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. To watch this episode, go to youtube.com/@storiesfromtheriver. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.